Velthar stared at the datapad in his four hands, reading the assignment notice for the third time. He hoped the words would somehow change, but they remained the same. Embedded Combat Observer, Human Military Unit. Duration: until mission completion. This was not good. He sat in his small office aboard the Coalition command station, surrounded by screens displaying star charts and species files. Outside the window, the darkness of space stretched endlessly. Velthar had spent 15 cycles as an observer, documenting combat techniques of various species. He preferred it that way: safe, organized, predictable. Humans were none of those things. The door chimed. Before Velthar could respond, his colleague Threshkal entered. The older Chiron moved slowly, his shell darker and more scarred than Velthar's greenish carapace. "I heard about your assignment," Threshkal said, settling into a chair designed for their species. "My condolences." "It cannot be that bad," Velthar replied, though his antennae drooped with doubt. "They are Coalition members. They passed the entrance requirements." Threshkal made a clicking sound that indicated disagreement. "I observed humans once, 7 cycles ago. Do you know what I learned?" Velthar waited. "They don't calculate survival odds before acting. They decide what they want to do, then they do it. Logic comes after, if at all." Threshkal leaned forward. "They are dangerous, Velthar. Not because they are strong or fast, because they don't think like us." After Threshkal left, Velthar opened the human files. The species had joined the Coalition only 40 cycles ago, emerging from a small yellow star system on the galaxy's outer arm. Their homeworld was a death world by most standards: high gravity, aggressive predators, extreme weather. Somehow humans had not only survived, but thrived. Their military record was short but concerning. 3 conflicts, 3 victories. But the casualty rates made Velthar's stomachs churn. Humans lost soldiers at rates that would cause other species to retreat, yet they kept fighting. Their psychological profiles mentioned words that troubled him: loyalty, sacrifice, honor, duty. The Chiron had words for these concepts, but they were considered primitive emotions, left behind millions of cycles ago when his species evolved true intelligence. The next morning, Velthar reported to Docking Bay 7. A human officer waited there, wearing the dark blue uniform of their space forces. He was tall by Velthar's standards, with brown skin and close-cropped black hair. His face bore a scar along one cheek. "Observer Velthar?" the human asked, pronouncing the name correctly. "I'm Commander Deho. I'll be your liaison." Velthar clicked his mandibles in greeting. "Thank you, Commander. I have reviewed the mission parameters, but many details are classified." Deho smiled, showing his teeth. Velthar had learned this was a friendly gesture for humans, though it looked predatory. "Walk with me. I'll explain what I can." They moved through the station's corridors. Other species gave the human a wide berth. Velthar noticed how Deho moved with confidence, his head up, his stride purposeful. Most species walked carefully in mixed environments, always aware of threats. Humans walked like they owned every space they entered. "You'll be observing the 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion," Deho explained. "We call them the Ghosts. They specialize in high-risk operations, rescue missions, deep reconnaissance, the jobs nobody else wants." "Why do they accept such dangerous assignments?" Velthar asked. Deho glanced at him. "Because someone has to. Because lives depend on it." They entered a briefing room where several humans waited. Deho made introductions. Captain Minho commanded the battalion. He was shorter than Deho, with a solid build and eyes that seemed to measure everything. His voice was quiet but carried authority. Lieutenant Jiwan served as tactical officer. She was female with sharp features and quick movements. Her uniform bore more decorations than the others. Later, Velthar would learn each decoration represented a wound received in combat. Sergeant Tajin was older, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands. He nodded to Velthar but said nothing. His silence felt heavy like stone. Corporal Yuna was youngest, a medic with kind eyes and steady hands. She smiled at Velthar, which surprised him. Most humans seemed wary of other species. "Observer Velthar will accompany us on the next operation," Minho said to his team. "He's here to document our methods. Treat him as a non-combatant. Keep him safe." "What's the mission, sir?" Jiwan asked. Minho activated a holographic display. A planet appeared, rotating slowly. "Coalition Research Station on Kelvar 4. 200 civilian scientists. The station went dark 6 hours ago. Long-range scans show Vrixtal forces have surrounded it. Velthar felt his blood cool. The Vrixtal were brutal warriors, reptilian hunters who took pleasure in killing. They were not coalition members. They raided border worlds, taking resources and prisoners. Intel suggests the Vrixtal are preparing to execute the hostages. Minho continued. We have a 30-hour window before reinforcements arrive. High Command wants us to extract the civilians before then. Velthar's mind calculated automatically. 30 hours, 200 civilians, unknown number of enemy forces. The variables were too many, the risks too high. What are our odds of success? He asked. The humans looked at each other. Then Taijin spoke for the first time, his voice rough. We don't think about odds. We think about the job. After the briefing, Velthar examined the human equipment. Their armor was lighter than Coalition standard, offering less protection. Their weapons were chemical-propelled projectiles, primitive compared to energy weapons most species used. Why do you use such basic equipment? He asked Yuna as she checked her medical supplies. She looked up from her work. Our armor is lighter because we move fast. We can't carry heavy plates and still do what we need to do. And bullets? She patted her rifle. Bullets are reliable. They work in any environment. No power cells to fail, no energy signatures to track. But you sacrifice protection for mobility, Velthar said. That increases risk. Yuna smiled again. That strange human expression that showed teeth. Can't help anyone if we're too slow to reach them. The logic made sense, but it felt wrong. Every instinct Velthar had said to maximize protection, minimize risk, calculate every action. Humans seemed to do the opposite. That evening, as the battalion prepared for departure, Velthar found Deho in the observation deck. Commander, I must ask, the mission parameters suggest a very low probability of success without casualties. Why proceed? Deho looked out at the stars. Because 200 people are counting on us. Because no one else will reach them in time. Because it's the right thing to do. But your soldiers might die. Yes, Deho said quietly. They might. They know that. They're going anyway. Why? Deho turned to face him. Because that's what humans do, Observer. We see something wrong and we try to fix it. We see someone in danger and we try to save them, even if it costs us. Especially if it costs us. That is illogical. Maybe. But it's what makes us human. Velthar returned to his quarters and tried to sleep. His mind kept reviewing the numbers. 40 soldiers, 200 civilians, unknown enemy forces, 30-hour window. Every calculation showed unacceptable risk. Yet the humans were going anyway. As his ship prepared for departure the next morning, Velthar realized something troubling. He had been assigned to observe humans in battle. But now, after meeting them, after seeing their determination and their strange confidence, he understood what Threshkal had meant. He didn't want to see what humans did in combat. The transport ship shook as it entered hyperspace. Velthar gripped his seat, trying to calm his racing hearts. Around him, the human soldiers seemed unconcerned. Some slept, others talked quietly. A few played cards, a human game involving chance and deception. Velthar had expected tension, fear, preparation for battle. Instead, he found something he didn't understand. The humans seemed relaxed. Yuna sat across from him, cleaning her medical equipment. She worked with practiced efficiency, checking each tool before storing it carefully. Are you not concerned about the mission? Velthar asked. She looked up. Concerned? Sure, but worry doesn't help. I do my job better when I'm calm. How can you be calm? The statistics indicate a high probability of casualties. Yuna paused, thinking. Fear is just information. It tells us there's danger. But it doesn't control what we do. We feel it, acknowledge it, then do what needs doing anyway. This concept confused Velthar. His species had evolved past strong emotions precisely because they interfered with logical thinking. Humans seemed to experience emotions fully, yet still acted rationally. How was that possible? Across the bay, Taijin was showing a younger soldier how to properly secure equipment. The old sergeant's movements were patient, methodical. He treated the lesson as if they had all the time in the world, not as if they were flying toward combat. Minho walked among his soldiers, speaking quietly to each one. He didn't give orders or instructions. He simply talked with them. Sometimes he smiled. Once Velthar saw him grip a nervous soldier's shoulder. saying something that made the young man nod and straighten. The captain is performing a psychological evaluation? Velthar asked G1, who sat nearby studying tactical displays. No, she said without looking up. He's checking on his people, making sure they're ready, letting them know he's there. For what purpose? Now G1 did look at him. Her eyes were dark and sharp. Because we're not machines, observer. We're people. We fight better when we know our leader cares about us. The ship dropped out of hyperspace 6 hours later. Kelvar 4 appeared on the screens, a gray planet with minimal atmosphere. The research station sat on the surface, a cluster of domes connected by enclosed tunnels. Scans showed Vrixtal ships in orbit and ground forces surrounding the station. The numbers made Velthar's antennae droop. At least 300 enemy soldiers, heavy weapons. Air support drop zone is hot, the pilot announced. Picking up significant anti-air fire, Velthar calculated quickly. Dropping into active combat zone, against superior numbers. With no element of surprise, the probability of successful insertion was 68% at best. Coalition doctrine said to abort and wait for better conditions. Take us in, Minho ordered. The ship dove toward the surface. Enemy fire lit up the sky. The hull rang with impacts. Alarms shrieked. Velthar felt his internal organs shifting as the pilot performed evasive maneuvers. The humans checked their weapons and armor, moving with practiced speed. No panic, no hesitation. They had done this before. The ship hit ground hard. The rear ramp dropped. Fire poured in from 3 directions. Move! 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 Tajin shouted. The humans ran into the fire. They didn't wait. They didn't plan. They just moved forward, returning fire as they ran. Velthar stumbled after them, his logical mind screaming that this was wrong. This was suicide. This was madness. A human soldier grabbed his arm, pulling him behind cover. Rounds sparked off the rock where Velthar had been standing a moment before. Stay low, observer, the soldier yelled over the noise. Then he was gone, running forward again. Velthar watched as the humans executed what his studies called fire and maneuver tactics. Half the squad fired at the enemy while the other half advanced. Then they switched. Back and forth, always moving forward, never stopping. It shouldn't have worked. The Vrixtal had better positions, more weapons, numerical advantage. But the constant human pressure disrupted their defense. The enemy kept falling back, trying to reorganize, failing. Minho's voice cut through the noise, calm and clear. Jiwan left flank. Tajin suppressing fire. Third squad. Push center. The humans moved like parts of a single organism, each knowing their role without being told everything. They communicated with hand signals, short phrases, and sometimes just looks. A Vrixtal warrior appeared on Velthar's right, its weapon aimed at him. Velthar froze, his mind blank with terror. Tajin appeared from nowhere, firing 3 rounds. The Vrixtal fell. The sergeant grabbed Velthar and shoved him forward. Keep moving. Staying still gets you killed. They reached the station perimeter. The humans took cover behind a low wall. Tajin dropped beside Velthar, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm from a deep cut. You are injured, Velthar said, his medical training recognizing a serious wound. I'm fine, Tajin said, firing at the enemy. You require immediate medical attention. That wound, Doc? Tajin called. Yuna appeared, moving in a crouch. She saw the wound, pulled out supplies, and began working without a word. Her hands moved quickly, efficiently, even as weapons fire cracked overhead. This is insane, Velthar said. The medic should not expose herself to fire. She is too valuable. Yuna glanced at him while wrapping Tajin's arm. What good is a medic who won't go where her patients are? She finished the bandaging and patted Tajin's shoulder. You'll live. Try not to get shot again. No promises, Tajin said, and returned to firing. Yuna moved on to the next wounded soldier, crawling through enemy fire as casually as if she were walking through a garden. Velthar's understanding of combat doctrine shattered. Everything he had learned said to minimize risk, preserve valuable personnel, calculate optimal strategies. Humans did none of these things. They risked everything, exposed themselves to fire, and acted on instinct as much as planning. Yet they were winning. Jiwan appeared beside Minho, her tactical display showing the station layout. Sir, the station is worse than expected. Vrixtal have heavy armor positions here, and here. Air support on standby. Estimated enemy forces inside the perimeter at 200 plus. Minho studied the display. Velthar looked over his shoulder, calculating automatically. The humans had 40 soldiers. The enemy had at least 200. The humans had light weapons. The enemy had armor and air support. No possible route showed better than 40% success probability. Jiwan, show me approach routes, Minho said. She highlighted 3 paths, each color-coded by risk level. All 3 showed red. High casualties probable. This one, Minho said, pointing to the path marked highest risk. Through the maintenance tunnels. Sir, that route has the lowest success probability, Jiwan said. Will be channeled. No room to maneuver. Complete exposure at the exit point. Which is exactly why they won't expect it. Velthar couldn't stay silent. Captain, this is not logical. You are choosing the most dangerous option. Minho looked at him. His eyes were calm, certain. The safest routes are the ones they'll watch most carefully. The dangerous route is where they'll have fewer defenses. We hit them where they're weak, not where they're strong. But your soldiers will die. Some might, Minho said quietly, but more civilians will live. That's the calculation that matters. The humans prepared to move. They checked weapons, adjusted armor, shared water and ammunition. Tajin moved among them, that wounded arm forgotten, his voice steady as he positioned each soldier. Velthar realized something that made his blood run cold. These humans knew many of them would not survive the next hour. They had calculated the same odds he had. They understood the risk and they were going anyway, not because they were stupid, not because they didn't understand, but because they had decided that saving 200 strangers was worth 40 human lives. The equation made no sense. The logic was broken. The mathematics were wrong. But watching Yuna smile at a nervous young soldier, seeing Tajin grip his weapon with quiet determination, observing Minho's calm confidence, Velthar understood something terrible. Humans didn't fight the way other species did. They didn't calculate survival first. They calculated purpose first, necessity first, duty first. Survival came second. Threshkal had been right. Humans were dangerous, not because of their weapons or tactics, because they didn't think like anyone else in the galaxy. The maintenance tunnels were dark and narrow. Velthar had to crouch to move through them, his shell scraping against the metal walls. The humans moved in single file, their lights cutting through the darkness like small stars. No one spoke. The only sounds were breathing, footsteps, and the distant rumble of weapons fire above. Velthar tried to understand what he was witnessing. Coalition doctrine said to maximize advantages before engaging. The humans had chosen a route with no advantages at all. Confined space, single exit point, no support, no backup plan. It violated every principle of combat strategy. Yet Minho moved forward with absolute confidence. His soldiers followed without question. They trusted him completely. Why? The tunnel ended at a vertical shaft. Minho signaled. Tajin moved forward, checked the shaft, then began climbing. One by one, the humans followed. They climbed quickly, silently, weapons strapped to their backs. Velthar climbed last, his forearms giving him an advantage the humans lacked. Yet they moved faster, their two-armed climbing somehow more efficient. They emerged in a storage facility inside the station. Crates and equipment provided cover. Through the windows, Velthar saw Vrixtal patrols moving between buildings. Jiwon studied her tactical display, then showed Minho something. He nodded. Hand signals passed down the line. The humans split into 3 groups. Velthar stayed with Minho's group. They moved through the facility like shadows, using cover, avoiding open spaces, moving when the enemy looked away. It was beautiful in its efficiency, deadly in its precision. They reached an equipment bay. Through the door, Velthar saw Vrixtal heavy armor. 3 vehicles, each capable of destroying everything the humans had brought. Minho signaled to a soldier named Sujin. The young man nodded, pulled out several devices, and crept toward the vehicles. Velthar recognized explosive charges. Chemical-based, crude, but effective. Sujin placed the charges and returned. 30 seconds later, the vehicles exploded. Fire and smoke filled the bay. Alarms shrieked. Go, go, go! Minho shouted. The humans ran forward using the confusion. They hit the Vrixtal from 3 directions simultaneously. The enemy, focused on the explosions, didn't see the attack until too late. The fighting was close, brutal and fast. Velthar pressed against a wall, his heart's racing. He had studied combat from safe distances, through recordings and reports. This was different. This was real. A Vrixtal warrior charged toward him, its weapon raised. Velthar couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't. Yuna appeared, firing 3 times. The warrior fell. She grabbed Velthar's arm. "Stay with me, observer. I'll keep you safe." They moved through the facility. The humans cleared room after room with terrifying efficiency. They moved as if they could read each other's minds, each knowing where the others would be, what they would do. Taijin's squad held a corridor against a Vrixtal counterattack. 15 enemy warriors pushed forward, trying to break through. Tajin had only 4 soldiers. The odds said they should fall back. The mathematics said they couldn't hold. Tajin planted his feet and fired. His soldiers did the same. They held that corridor for 8 minutes. 8 impossible minutes. When reinforcements arrived, all 5 humans were wounded but still standing. The corridor was filled with dead Vrixtal. Later, when they had a moment to breathe, Velthar found Sujin. The young soldier was bandaging a wound on his leg. "Why didn't you retreat?" Velthar asked. The odds were impossible. Sujin looked at him with eyes too old for his young face. "Because my friends were counting on me." The other squads needed time to reach the civilians. "If we fell back, the enemy would have flanked them. So we stayed." "But you could have died?" "Yeah, but I didn't." Sujin smiled. "That's what matters." The logic made no sense. The soldier valued his friend's success over his own survival. This violated every evolutionary principle Velthar understood. Self-preservation came first. Always. That was basic biology. Unless you were human. Jiwan's squad reached the station's anti-air defenses, heavy weapons that could destroy any ship trying to evacuate the civilians. They had to be eliminated. Velthar watched through a window as Jiwan calculated blast ranges. The charges had to be placed precisely. Too close to the power source and the explosion would destroy half the station. Too far and it wouldn't work. She chose a position that was closer than safe. Much closer. When the charges detonated, her squad was within the danger radius the explosion threw them across the room. 2 humans didn't get up. Jiwan struggled to her feet, blood running down her face. She checked the defenses through the smoke. Destroyed. She keyed her radio. "Anti-air is down." "Repeat, anti-air is down. Send evacuation ships." Then she collapsed. Yuna reached Jiwan within seconds, her hands moving quickly, checking vitals, applying treatment. The other humans secured the area while their tactical officer lay unconscious. Velthar knelt beside Yuna. She calculated the explosion wrong. "No," Yuna said without looking up. She calculated it exactly right. Close enough to destroy the target, far enough that her people survived. That's what matters, but she was injured. Her calculations risked her life. She saved 200 civilians by destroying those guns. That's what she'll care about when she wakes up. The civilians were located in a collapsed sublevel. Scans showed them alive but trapped. The Vrixtal were moving toward that location. Intel suggested they planned to execute the hostages. Minho received a communication from Diho. Reinforcements were coming, but they were 30 minutes away. The Vrixtal would reach the civilians in 10 minutes. The numbers were clear. Minho's force was down to 30 combat-effective soldiers. The enemy had over 200 warriors converging on the civilian location. Even with surprise, even with superior tactics, the humans couldn't win. "What are your orders, sir?" Taijin asked. Minho looked at his remaining soldiers. Wounded, tired, running low on ammunition. They looked back at him with absolute trust. "We hold them. Every second we buy is another chance for those civilians to live." Human command sent new orders. They would create a defensive position. Hold as long as possible. Buy time for evacuation ships to arrive. It was the only logical option. It was also a death sentence. Velthar found his voice. "Captain, this is suicide. Your entire force will be destroyed. You must retreat and wait for reinforcements." Minho turned to him. His face was calm, almost peaceful. "If we retreat, the Vrixtal reach the civilians in 10 minutes. All 200 die. If we fight, we buy time. Maybe enough time. But you will die. Maybe. Probably." Minho smiled slightly. "But those civilians won't. Not if we do our job right." Velthar's mind couldn't process this. The equation was simple. 40 human lives or 200 mixed species lives. From a pure mathematical standpoint, sacrificing the 40 saved the 200. But beings didn't make that choice. Self-preservation was fundamental to all life. I don't understand, Velthar said quietly. Tajin stepped forward. Those people down there are scientists, Observer. They're studying ways to improve crop yields on border worlds. They're developing better medicine. They're making the galaxy better. That's worth fighting for. That's worth dying for. But you don't even know them. Doesn't matter, Yuna said. She had returned after stabilizing G1. They're people. They need help. We can provide it. That's enough. The humans began preparing defensive positions. They worked quickly, efficiently, setting up overlapping fields of fire, establishing fallback points, distributing ammunition. Velthar watched them work. These soldiers who should have been terrified were calm. These beings who should have fled were preparing to stand. These humans who should have chosen survival were choosing sacrifice. Minho approached him. Observer, I'm ordering you to evacuate with the civilians. Your report is important. You need to survive to deliver it. And you? Velthar asked. Minho looked at his soldiers. We'll do what humans do. We'll fight. We'll buy time. We'll make every second count. He paused, then said something Velthar would remember forever. Count the seconds we buy them, Observer, not the ones we lose. That's how you measure what we're worth. The enemy was coming. 40 humans prepared to face 200 Vrixtal warriors. The odds were impossible. The humans didn't care. Velthar finally understood what Threshkal had meant. Humans were dangerous because they made decisions that no logical species would make. They valued others over themselves. The central atrium was the largest space in the research station, 3 levels high, with walkways and platforms connecting different sections. It was designed for gatherings and presentations, not combat. Now it would be a killing ground. Minho positioned his 40 soldiers with precision, overlapping fields of fire, multiple fallback positions, choke points at every entrance. He used every advantage the space offered, turning an open area into a defensive maze. Velthar watched from behind cover as the humans prepared. They didn't speak much. A word here, a gesture there. They understood each other perfectly. Taijin walked among the soldiers, checking positions, adjusting angles of fire. His wounded arm was freshly bandaged, the blood already seeping through. He paid it no attention. Yuna set up a field medical station in the center of the atrium. Completely exposed, no cover. Velthar's logic center screamed at the madness of it. You cannot treat wounded there, he told her. You will be shot. She looked up from arranging supplies. If I hide in cover, wounded soldiers have to reach me. That takes time they might not have. Here, I can reach them faster. But you will die, Yuna smiled. That strange human expression that showed teeth and somehow conveyed peace. Maybe, but I'll save more people this way. That's what matters. The civilian evacuation was underway. Frightened scientists and researchers were being led to the extraction point, where ships would arrive. 200 lives depending on 40 soldiers to buy them time. Minho received a communication. The evacuation would take 20 minutes. The Vrixtal were 3 minutes away. 20 minutes. 40 soldiers. 200 plus enemy warriors. Velthar's calculations showed 0 chance of success. The humans would be overrun in the first 5 minutes. The math was absolute. Positions. Minho called. The humans settled into place. Weapons ready. Eyes forward. No fear on their faces. Only determination. The Vrixtal came like a wave. They poured through every entrance, roaring battle cries, firing wildly. They expected quick victory. Easy prey. They were wrong. The human firing discipline was perfect. Each soldier chose targets, fired controlled bursts, moved to new positions. The Vrixtal advanced staggered as warriors fell. The enemy had numbers, but the humans had precision. 3 minutes passed. The Vrixtal adapted, using their own fallen as cover, coordinating their assault. They pushed harder. 5 minutes. A human soldier named Hyunwoo fell, a blast catching him in the chest. Yuna sprinted across open ground to reach him. Rounds sparked off the floor around her. She didn't flinch. She dropped beside Hyunwoo, her hands already working. 6 minutes. The Vrixtal broke through on the left flank. Tajin shifted 4 soldiers to plug the gap. They fired and moved, slowly giving ground but making the enemy pay for every meter. 8 minutes. Ammunition was running low. Minho gave the order to conserve shots, make every round count. The humans' firing rate decreased, but their accuracy increased. 10 minutes. A human soldier fell. Then another. Yuna moved between them, treating the wounded even as the battle raged around her. She was completely exposed, completely vulnerable. Enemy fire came close, so close, but she kept working. Velthar watched in horror and awe. This small human female, this medic who should have been protecting herself, moved through the battle like death itself couldn't touch her. Not because she was invincible, because she didn't care. Her patients needed her more than she needed safety. 12 minutes. The Vrixtal commander ordered a concentrated push on the right side. 15 warriors charged together, trying to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Tejan saw it coming. He took 6 soldiers and counterattacked. Not defending, attacking. They ran directly at the enemy charge, firing as they moved. The collision was brutal. Hand-to-hand combat, too close for weapons. Humans and Vrixtal fought with fists and claws and desperation. When it was over, all 15 Vrixtal were down. Tejan's squad staggered back. 3 soldiers didn't make it. The others were wounded but still fighting. 14 minutes. A Vrixtal warrior broke through, heading for the civilian evacuation route. If it reached the fleeing scientists, it would slaughter them. Hyunwoo, the soldier Yuna had treated, was closest. His chest was wrapped in bandages. He could barely stand, but he positioned himself at a blast door, the only thing between the warrior and the civilians. "Hyunwoo, fall back," Minho ordered. Hyunwoo shook his head. He braced his feet against the door, holding it partially closed. The Vrixtal fired. Rounds tore through Hyunwoo's body. But he held. He held for 90 seconds. 90 impossible seconds. By the time the warrior forced the door open, reinforcements had arrived. The civilians were safe. Hyunwoo collapsed. Jiwon, barely conscious from her earlier injury, crawled to his position. She took his place at the door without hesitation. Blood ran down her face. Her leg was broken, but she held 16 minutes. Velthar's logical mind broke. Nothing he was seeing was possible. The humans should have been dead. The enemy should have overrun them. The mathematics said so, but the mathematics didn't account for human determination. It didn't factor in their willingness to die for strangers. It couldn't calculate the power of beings who valued duty more than survival. 18 minutes. The humans were down to 19 combat-effective soldiers. Ammunition was nearly gone. Some were using Vrixtal weapons picked up from fallen enemies. The Vrixtal commander sent a communication. Surrender terms. Lay down weapons and the humans would be taken prisoner instead of executed. Minho read the message. He looked at his remaining soldiers. Wounded, exhausted, nearly out of ammunition. Every logical reason to accept. He keyed his radio so everyone could hear his response. "Come and get us." The Vrixtal roared with rage and charged again. The humans met them with their remaining ammunition. Every shot was deliberate. Every shot counted. They were down to single rounds, making each one a deliberate choice. 19 minutes. Yuna had run out of medical supplies. She was tearing strips from her own uniform to use as bandages. A Vrixtal warrior saw her, exposed in the open, easy prey. 3 human soldiers threw themselves between the warrior and their medic. They had no ammunition. They fought with their hands, with their bodies. They died so she could keep saving others. Yuna didn't stop working. Tears ran down her face, but her hands stayed steady. Velthar couldn't stay back anymore. Some part of him, some part he didn't know he had, couldn't watch without acting. He grabbed a fallen weapon and fired at the enemy. He couldn't hit anything. His hands shook too much, but he fired anyway. A human soldier pulled him back into cover. "Save your shots, observer. We've got this." 20 minutes. Ships appeared overhead. Evacuation complete. All 200 civilians were safe. Minho received confirmation. He smiled, actually smiled, despite the blood running down his face. "Fall back," he ordered. "Mission complete. Fall back to extraction point." The remaining humans retreated in order, covering each other, moving as one. The Vrixtal tried to pursue, but coalition air support arrived, driving them back. Of the original 40 soldiers, 19 were still combat effective. 12 were critically wounded. 9 were dead. They had held for 20 minutes. 20 impossible, mathematical, defying minutes. They had saved 200 lives. As the evacuation ships lifted away, Velthar looked at the humans. They weren't celebrating. They were mourning their fallen. They had won, had saved everyone, had accomplished the impossible, but they were crying for the 9 who hadn't made it home. Velthar finally understood. Humans didn't measure victory by success. They measured it by cost. Every soldier lost was a brother or sister gone. Every death mattered. They won, but they also lost. And they felt both equally. Velthar looked at his notes, at his calculations, at his logical analysis of human combat doctrine. He deleted it all. Nothing he could write would explain what he had witnessed. No equation could capture what humans were. They were beings who chose sacrifice over survival, who valued strangers as much as themselves, who faced impossible odds not because they were stupid, but because they decided those odds didn't matter. They were dangerous. They were illogical. They were beautiful. And Velthar realized he didn't wish he had refused the assignment anymore. He wished more beings in the galaxy were like them. The Coalition medical station orbited a peaceful moon, far from combat zones. Velthar sat in the observation lounge staring at his blank data pad. He had been staring at it for 3 hours. The report was due. High Command wanted his observations on human combat effectiveness. They wanted data, statistics, tactical analysis. Velthar had the numbers. Final casualty count: 12 human soldiers dead, 24 wounded, 4 in critical condition, 200 civilians saved. Mission success rate 100%. But numbers didn't explain what happened. Statistics didn't capture what he witnessed. How could he explain beings who ran toward danger instead of away from it? How could he quantify soldiers who valued strangers' lives above their own? What equation measured the strength of beings who fought hardest not when winning but when losing? He deleted his 7th attempt at writing. The medical bay was quiet when Velthar entered. Humans lay in recovery beds, their bodies wrapped in bandages and healing fields. Some slept. Others stared at the ceiling with distant eyes. Velthar found Tejan in a bed near the window. The old sergeant's wounded arm was in a regeneration tube. Scars covered his visible skin, old and new mixed together. "Observer," Tejan said, his voice rough. "Surprised you're still here?" "Most observers file their reports and leave. I cannot write my report," Tejan studied him. "Why not?" "Because I do not understand what I saw. My species evolved past emotional decision-making millions of cycles ago. We calculate optimal survival strategies. We maximize self-preservation. What you did violates every principle of rational behavior. You think we're crazy. I think you are the most dangerous beings I have ever encountered." Tejan smiled slightly. "Yeah, we get that a lot." In another bed, a young soldier named Minsu stared at his hands. Both had been injured in the final defense. He had held a position alone for 5 minutes, giving his squad time to regroup. He had saved 7 soldiers. He was 22 human years old. "Why did you hold that position?" Velthar asked him. "You could have retreated. Survival probability would have increased significantly." Minsu looked up. His eyes were old despite his young face. "My friends needed time. I had time to give." Simple math. "But you could have died." "Yeah, but I didn't. And my friends are alive because I stayed." He paused. "That's the only math that matters." Velthar moved through the medical bay, speaking with the wounded. Each conversation confused him more. These soldiers had faced death, had been wounded, had lost friends. But none of them regretted their choices. They only regretted they couldn't do more. Yuna was in a bed near the back, her leg elevated in a healing field. She had been hit during the final minutes, a round catching her as she treated another soldier. She had finished treating that soldier before treating herself. "How are you feeling?" Velthar asked. "Alive," she said with a slight smile. "That's more than 9 of my friends can say." Her voice broke slightly on the last words. Velthar saw tears in her eyes. She wiped them away quickly. "You saved 17 soldiers during the battle," Velthar said. "Without your actions, the casualty count would have been much higher. I lost 3 patients. 3 people I couldn't save. But you saved 17. I know. But I'll remember the 3 more." She looked at him. "That's the thing about being human, observer. We carry our failures heavier than our successes. The people we save make us proud. The people we lose make us better." Velthar didn't understand. The logic was backwards. Success should matter more than failure. But watching Yuna's face, seeing the determination mixed with grief, he realized human logic wasn't about mathematics. It was about meaning. Captain Minho was in a private room. His injuries were serious but not critical. He sat up in bed reading reports on his data pad. Even wounded, he was working. "Observer," Minho greeted him. "I heard you're having trouble with your report." "How did you know?" "Commander Deho mentioned it. He said you've been sitting in the observation lounge staring at a blank screen." Velthar's antennae drooped. I cannot find words to explain what I witnessed. What's the problem? Everything you did was illogical. You chose the most dangerous approaches. You sacrificed optimal positioning for speed. You exposed valuable personnel to unnecessary risk. By all calculations, you should have failed. But you succeeded. Minho set down his data pad. You're trying to explain human behavior using logic that doesn't apply to humans. What do you mean? Other species calculate whether they can win before fighting. Humans are different. We decide we will win, then we find a way. We don't let the odds choose our actions. We choose our actions, then we change the odds. That makes no sense. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to work. Minho leaned forward. Observer, let me ask you something. If you calculated that helping someone would likely result in your death, would you help them? Velthar thought carefully. No. Self-preservation is fundamental to survival. Sacrificing oneself for another violates basic evolutionary principles. That's where we're different. Humans decided a long time ago that some things matter more than survival. Protecting others. Keeping promises. Standing up for what's right. We'll die for those things. Not because we want to die. Because we can't live with ourselves if we don't. But evolution should have eliminated such behavior. It reduces survival rates, Minho smiled. Maybe. But it also means humans will never abandon their friends. Never break their word. Never surrender when something important is at stake. That makes us reliable, trustworthy. It makes people want us as allies. Velthar considered this. A species that valued honor over survival would be dependable in ways others weren't. They would fight when others fled. They would stand when others surrendered. They would be perfect allies or terrible enemies. 3 days later, Velthar attended a memorial service for the fallen. It was held in the station's garden, a place of growing things and quiet peace. The 9 dead soldiers were honored. Their names were read. Their actions were remembered. The surviving soldiers spoke about their fallen friends, sharing stories that made some people laugh and others cry. Velthar watched Yuna place flowers at a memorial marker. She stood there for a long time, her head bowed, her lips moving in silent words. Later, Velthar asked her what she had said. I promised them I'd remember, that their sacrifice mattered, that I'd be worthy of the chance they gave me to live. Do you believe death in combat has meaning? I believe any death has the meaning we give it. My friends died saving 200 people. That gives their deaths tremendous meaning. It makes their lives matter even more. Commander Deho found Velthar in his quarters that evening. The commander looked tired but satisfied. I hear you're struggling with your report, Deho said. I cannot explain humans in ways my superiors will understand. Then don't explain us. Just tell them what you saw. What I saw violates all known principles of combat doctrine. Good, Deho said. That means we're doing something right. He sat down, his expression becoming serious. Observer, let me tell you what makes humans different. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest. We're not the fastest or the most advanced. But we have something no other species has. What? We care more about each other than we care about ourselves. A human soldier will die to save his friend. A human civilian will run into danger to help a stranger. We're wired to protect the group even if it costs us individually. That's our evolutionary advantage. Not strength. Not intelligence, connection. But that should make you weak. It should make you easy to defeat. You'd think so. But it means we fight harder when we're together. We're stronger as a group than as individuals. Our bonds multiply our effectiveness. 1 human alone is dangerous. 10 humans who trust each other are unstoppable. Velthar finally understood. Human strength wasn't individual. It was collective. They weaponized their social bonds, turned friendship into tactical advantage, made love a combat multiplier. It was brilliant. It was terrifying. It was uniquely human. He began writing his report. This time the words came easily. Human combat doctrine defies conventional strategic analysis. They do not calculate optimal survival probability before engaging. They assess mission necessity, then commit fully regardless of personal risk. This behavior should result in high casualties and mission failure. Instead, it creates unpredictable tactical advantages and extraordinary success rates. Recommendation: do not engage humans in combat. Their willingness to accept casualties while achieving objectives makes them extremely dangerous opponents. However, as allies, this same trait makes them exceptionally reliable. They will not abandon their commitments. They will not retreat from difficult positions. They will pay any cost to fulfill their promises. Secondary recommendation: all coalition species should study human combat doctrine, not to copy it, but to understand it. We may face enemies who employ similar tactics. More importantly, we may need to learn what humans already know, that some things are worth dying for, and beings willing to die for something are nearly impossible to defeat. He added one final paragraph, knowing it violated every protocol for observer reports. Personal note: I requested this assignment be my last observation of human forces. Request denied.